Okay, so what if the reality you perceive is just scratching the surface?
Hmm.
And what if those ancient stories, the ones we all sort of know, actually held a deep secret about who you really are?
That's a fascinating way to put it. And today, yeah, we're diving deep into a lecture by Neville Goddard. It's quite mind-bending one called The Womb of the Universe.
The womb of the universe, right. So our mission here, let's say, is to really unpack Goddard's perspective. It's unique,
Right.
especially his take on biblical scripture.
And there's this remarkable personal account in the lecture, too. We want to focus on his central idea, which is pretty astonishing, that each of us, every individual, is basically functioning as the womb of the universe.
Okay, and we're basing this on excerpts from Goddard's lecture itself. Now, we should probably set the stage a bit, right? Because Goddard's viewpoint is key here.
Absolutely. He believed Scripture wasn't symbolic, not myth, but literally true.
Literally true. Which, that puts him immediately at odds with how most scholars look at these texts.
Exactly. A huge contrast. They see myth, symbolism. He sees literal fact, often personal fact.
Okay, so let's get into it. Where do we start? Genesis.
Yes, let's start there. Genesis 2, verses 21 to 24.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really famous passage, right? God causes Adam to fall into a deep sleep,
Mm-hmm. Takes the rib.
takes the rib, creates woman. Now, the conventional understanding, like you said, is myth, a foundational story, maybe about how the sexes came to be or relationships, something like that.
Right, a symbolic origin story. Makes sense. But the Dard.
Goddard just flips that.
Yeah.
He takes it literally. For him, the man isn't just Adam, the first human, it's God.
God himself.
It's God himself. And the deep sleep, he argues that wasn't just passing out, it was deliberate, a self-imposed state.
For what purpose?
For creation. God entered this state to create. And this is where it gets really interesting. The woman.
Okay. What about the woman?
She's an emanation of God, God's partner, you could
Oh,
say,
one-
in this creative act. And she exists in this state with God until what Goddard calls the sleep of death is over.
The sleep of death. Like our state of unawareness.
That seems to be the implication, yeah. Unawareness of our true divine nature. And Goddard highlights that instruction, for the man to leave his parents, cleave to his wife, become one flesh.
Right.
He sees that as pointing to a future reunification, emerging back into that original oneness with God. But after we awaken from this sleep.
So we separate, then we come back together.
Exactly. But here's a crucial point for Goddard. When this reunification happens, God isn't diminished. God is actually infinitely greater, enriched by all the experiences gained through this whole process, through us.
Wow. Okay. So it's not just a literal creation story for him. It's God separating from himself, kind of for the sake of experience involving us.
Precisely. It's a radical idea. Divinity itself undergoing a kind of self-separation and reunification, with us being central to that process.
Okay, so this idea of like a divine partnership, God and an emanation, does that pop up elsewhere?
It does. Goddard connects it to another really significant passage, this time from Isaiah chapter 54, verses 5 through 8.
Isaiah 54, what does that say?
It says, quite directly, your maker is your husband.
Your maker is your husband.
And he links that to Psalm 40, verse 7. In the volume of the book, it is written about me.
Ah, so he's saying the scriptures aren't just old stories.
Not just history or about other people. No. For Goddard, Scripture is deeply personal. It's about you. It's about me. It's about every single individual.
So when Isaiah says your maker is your husband, Goddard thinks that applies to, everyone listening right now, regardless of gender.
Exactly. Regardless of your current sex, in this specific context of creation and divine relationship, Goddard argues everyone is fundamentally the woman, the bride of God. Kind of like Eve in that Genesis story.
He saw himself that way.
He mentions his own conviction, yeah. But then he introduces something really compelling, a first-hand account. Someone who was actually at one of his lectures shared an experience.
Okay, this sounds like where it gets really personal. A direct experience validating this womb of the universe idea.
Yeah. That's exactly how it seems. This man, he described entering this profound state, and then suddenly, whoosh, he was on this journey, instantaneous, vast. He said it was like lightning, 1,000,000 miles.
Wow.
And in that state, he realized his own being was the womb of the universe, this cosmic space containing everything.
Containing everything within himself.
Yes.
Yes.
And what really struck him was recognizing this previously unconscious female element within him, undeniably female.
A female element within a man experiencing himself as the cosmic womb. Okay.
And then he draws this really stark contrast. He compares the earthly sexual act to this creative act he was experiencing. And he found the earthly version just, well, incredibly limited, almost crude by comparison. He used this really vivid phrase.
What was it?
He called it like a couple of out-of-season slugs.
Slight chuckle. Okay, that's memorable. Compared to the cosmic creative act.
Right. And during this, he also saw these numberless vortices, like whirlpools of energy.
Vortices, what did he understand those to be?
He saw them as imaginal acts, thoughts, desires, intentions, but in motion, actively gathering substance, gathering density, getting ready to become, apparent to our senses, to manifest.
So like seeds of reality forming.
Kind of, yeah. And he felt like a traveler, in a strange land. At first, he could only remember bits and pieces, highlights, but the memories apparently surfaced more over time.
That's quite an account. So how does Goddard connect that experience back to the scriptures we were just talking about?
He ties it directly back to Isaiah 54.5, my maker is my husband.
Okay.
And also to Canon of Timothy 2.15. He had a specific translation he preferred from the Greek, emphasizing that the woman will be saved by the birth of the child.
Saved by the birth of the child within.
That seems to be the idea. And he also points out something interesting about the word for husband. He says it could also mean dreamer or just person.
Dreamer. So God is dreaming us.
That's the suggestion. God is dreaming us into existence. And in this state, the man who had the experience, he saw the dreamer.
He saw God.
He saw a figure. Deep state, lotus posture, radiating this incredible beauty, strength of character. And then came the realization. He was looking at himself.
Wow.
But like a perfected, more powerful version of himself.
Yeah.
Which powerfully reinforces that idea, right? The bride and the dreamer, the individual, and God becoming one again when we awaken.
It's a lot to take in. Which brings us back to the scholars, doesn't it? How does this kind of literal experiential interpretation sit with them?
Well, as you can imagine, not well, generally.
Right.
Goddard acknowledges that skepticism. Scholars look at Genesis, for instance, and see symbolic narrative, myth, cultural history.
Not a literal account of God separating and dreaming through individual.
Definitely not. It's a completely different framework. But Goddard sticks to his interpretation, really emphasizing the creative power of our own imagination. He brings it back to those vortices the man saw.
The imaginal acts gathering density.
Exactly. He explains, these are constantly happening. Our imaginal acts are always in process, always gathering substance to eventually show up in our sensory world. And he talks about how we initiate this.
How?
He uses the image of breathing into an imagined scene, but he clarifies it's not breathing out. It's a deep inhalation, like you're drawing the reality into yourself, a kind of inner self-impregnation.
Self-impregnation, meaning the creative act is entirely within us.
That's the idea. It originates purely in our consciousness, our imagination with a capital I. He even quotes William Blake here.
Blake comes up a fair bit with Goddard, doesn't he?
He does. Very influential. The quote is, all that you behold, though it appears without, it is within, in your imagination.
Everything outside is actually inside.
Wow. Okay, that's a huge concept. Does he give any, everyday examples of it?
He does. Just a brief story, but it kind of illustrates the principle on a small scale. It's about a lady and a parking space.
Okay, I think we can all relate to parking space drama. What happened? Well, Goddard apparently saw this woman get really, really frustrated. Someone else swooped in and took a parking spot she clearly wanted.
Uh-oh.
And Goddard suggests that her intense negative feeling, her sort of imaginal act of annoyance and maybe anger, manifested very quickly in the interaction that followed with the other driver. He uses it as this simple, quick example of how our inner state, our imaginal activity, can seemingly shape our immediate outer world.
So even frustration over parking is a kind of creation.
From this perspective, yes. That inner womb of imagination is always active, shaping things large and small. It echoes the bigger point about our cosmic creative role.
Right. So the core message keeps coming back. Imagination is the workshop, the space where reality takes form.
It is. And he loops back again to that central theme. You, the individual, are the bride of God. You are the womb of the universe.
And redemption that comes through birth.
Through the inner birth of the Christ child, as he puts it. That divine awareness within. He mentions Simeon in the temple, Job's final understanding. They achieved it when they saw or knew this inner divinity.
Seeing or knowing. And there was another Blake quote you mentioned about the virginity of the virgin. How does that fit?
Ah, yes. Blake's line is something like, Whate'er is done to her, she cannot blame, no one to take the pride, no one the shame.
Okay.
Goddard uses this to underline that the ultimate actor, the husband god, the dreamer, is the source of all action. So the individual, as the womb or the bride, isn't ultimately the one to blame or praise in a conventional moral sense. The dreamer dreams the dream.
That's a challenging idea regarding responsibility.
It definitely shifts the perspective. Now, someone in the lecture apparently asked about a Hebrew word, maybe suggesting it meant earthbound.
Right. What was Goddard's take on that?
He rejected that interpretation quite firmly. He really emphasized the deep importance of the Hebrew tradition. He called it the plant, or the tree of life.
The root.
Exactly, the root from which Christianity, which he saw as the fruit, emerges. You can't disconnect them, in his view.
Okay. And finally, there was that mention of the 144,000 in Revelation, literal number or symbol.
Goddard presented the view that it's symbolic,
Meaning
it represents the entirety of humanity, everyone being saved ultimately. He even connects the numerical value, somehow, to the Hebrew spelling of Adam.
Adam, as in the original man.
Yes, the one grand man from whom we all came, reinforcing that idea that salvation, this awakening, is for everyone. No one is left out in the end.
Okay. Let's try and pull this all together then. We've gone through Goddard's quite literal take on Scripture, Genesis, Isaiah, this idea of a divine marriage.
And the really core concept, the individual as the womb of the universe, recognizing our own imagination as the actual creative power shaping reality.
Right, and this idea of redemption or salvation coming through an inner birth, the Christ child within, seeing or knowing that divinity.
So thinking about this for everyone listening, it really suggests a pretty transformative way of seeing yourself, doesn't it? And your place in the whole scheme of things.
Absolutely. So maybe the thought to leave with is this. What if you really considered yourself the womb of the universe? Seriously entertain that idea.
Yeah. How might that change things?
How might that radically shift how you see your own creative ability, your relationship to the world, to events, to other people? And maybe ask yourself, what metaphorical child, what reality are you right now in the process of birthing through your own imagination?
It's a profoundly deep idea to sit with, isn't it? Really encourages reflection.
Definitely. We hope everyone continues to ponder these concepts and maybe, even go back to Goddard's lecture itself for a deeper dive on their own.
A worthwhile exploration, for sure.